Now, let's introduce our two stars of today. Jeff Willem, founder of Multiplier, and Jan Lorison, human resources evangelist of SD Wars. Okay, thank you very much for coming today.
Sure. Okay.
If you want to introduce a little bit yourself, and then I will ask some questions.
Or will we do some introductions? We have a slideshow. What do you?
As you want.
Okay. Let's do the introductions. I'll do some presentation on soft skills. Is that okay?
Okay.
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 Okay. Thank you all for coming. We were invited by Andrea, who was unfortunately not able to come today because apparently she's really sick. So that's too bad. We prepared with her this today. I've been working for SD Works. Anyone know SD Works? The best cycling team in the world, but we're also a company, right? So I've been working for SD Works for about since 2011, and so for the last 3 years, I'm mainly occupied with research in HR. We're talking about that. That's why I'm the evangelist for the company. I can go talk about future of work in HR in all the countries where we are present, which is 26 at the moment. And that's why I want to share some of the things that we've been researching over the last couple of years with you, why this topic that the Chamber is now talking about, of presenting today, is so timely. Despite all things that are being published, I think, and I agree, soft skills have never been so important as now, despite AI and so on. But I want to share some ideas of the research that we've been doing, and then we can dig into that. Jeff.
Nice intro, man. I'm Jeff. Feel like I had 2 lives. I've been a DJ all my life. I've organized parties and festivals all my life, up until apparently some lady in China might have eaten or not eaten a bat. And we all know what the consequences of that were. And I noticed during COVID, during Corona, during the first months, that everything that I had built trembled like it's in Flemish we say card house, like everything crumbled. And I noticed that a lot of people were having a bad time around me. My family, my environment, my friends, my colleagues, everyone. And together with a best friend of mine, we felt inspired to do something with it because we had ourselves battled with depression, anxiety, all our lives. And that's when we created the platform in Dutch called Onbespreekbaar, and if I would translate it in English, it's unspeakable, but it doesn't sound very well. It's vaguely said as everything that we do not speak about, like a taboo kind of project, right? And we try to shine a light in the darkness of a lot of people. We try to break the taboo about a lot of mental health stuff. We're doing pretty well. We have podcasts, we have workshops, talks. We make a lot of content on social media. We've written books, we do merchandise, and we've reached, I think, 8 million people in total in 4 years. So it's been going pretty well. And today I think that I'm going to shed a bit of light on the importance of thinking about your well-being, about your mental state in a business environment or just as a person, because I think they are very linked. So yeah, I'm very excited for it, and thank you for your attention.
All right.
Is that
this
Spanish
is
culture?
Yeah.
Before speaking, really well. So Jeff, we start with Jeff?
Yes, fine.
Yeah? Okay. Jeff, how can fostering mental well-being unlock an entrepreneur's potential?
So when I've had the opportunity to talk to thousands of people like here today, but also with thousands of people, and a lot of entrepreneurs or business people, they tell me, I really like what you're doing with mental health, but I don't have the time for it. Without criticizing, it's something that I deeply understand because I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I also thought it's good for you, but I don't have the time for it, until there was a time in my life that it made time for me, and I couldn't do nothing except be depressed and have anxiety and all those things. And I always have the idea that whether you care about your mental health or not, these things exist. Think about trauma, think about how your parents dealt with you, how they dealt with each other, the love that you did see, the love that you didn't see. All these things have an impact on us as people, whether we like it or not. And so we think that when we try to open up our box, our thoughts of mental thoughts, our mental being, we think that we are going to open up a box and create this monster, while in reality we just let in the light. We create an opportunity for us to truly work on ourselves. And I always see these patterns with other entrepreneurs or people that if you do not work on your mental health and you don't know how to place boundaries on yourself and other people, if you're a perfectionist, if you're a people pleaser, if you're a self-saboteur, which I think most of us are, then undoubtedly this will have a huge part in your career. If you do not know how to say no to clients, to your boss, to your colleagues, to yourself, then you will always be a hostage of the demands of other people. And if you never filter the demands of other people, those demands will become your identity. And so it's very important to be very aware of everything that plays in your head and to truly work with it, because it's there whether you like it or not.
Adding to that, if we look at this from data point of view, have any of you have an idea how many people are absent from work in Belgium due to long-term illness? So how many people in Belgium are off of work for more than a year due to illness? Have a guess. There are about 5 million working people in Belgium. How many people are sick for more than a year? Have a guess. Shout something.
1 million.
That's a bit too much. But so, yes, 524,000 was the latest figure, which is 10% of the working population, right? 1/3 of these people, up to 40%, are at home with psychological and stress factors related syndromes. This is what Jeff is relating to. If we cannot make for sure that we keep the grips with what we do on a daily basis and care about our mental health, then at a certain moment it will hit you before you knew it. And that has an impact on you and your career, your employability. There are some words that come back all the time: career, employability, and so on. It has a big impact for your employer, right? Means that you're off for a long time, that's a big thing. It's also a societal problem, right? If so many people are sick due to illness, it means that in the case of Belgium, the costs of illness have surpassed the costs of unemployment in 2017. See, so I think that in that respect, it's pretty important that we think about this and also just look at mental health as soft skills. How do we do that? How do we manage that? To make sure that you keep on going to work, because you'll be working, if all goes well, until you're the age of 67, right? In Scandinavia, 72.
So I have now a question for Jan, that you reply a little bit, but from a corporate perspective, what are the critical soft skills company look for, and how can startups align with these demands?
Yeah. So, like I said, the big debate I talked this morning about the skills that relate to AI, and we all have to acquire skills that relate to AI. Some of you are good at that, some of us are not good at that. So basically, if you look at an HR perspective, people should be learning to prompt. That's it, right? So, and you might think that everything is about by technical skills. Hiya, welcome. No, there's plenty of room here. Front row seats, free. Hi, no worries, have a seat. As I was saying, so you might be surprised how important soft skills are for entrepreneurs. If you look at data from the OECD, or you look at the World Economic Forum, whatever, if you look at the top 10 skills that they predict that's going to be very defining for the future of work, right? How many do you think of those 10 are technical? 2. And they are not in the top 3. What is in the top 3, do you think?
The moral ones.
Sorry?
Moral ones or
Soft ones. Soft skills. Which soft skills? Empathy?
Leadership.
Yes. Creative thinking.
respect,
Respect. Problem solving.
collaboration.
Yes. Communication. Right. So what? Yeah.
Initiative.
Yes. So very counterintuitive, but the future skills that are important to any employee and to any entrepreneur is going to be soft skills. The technical skills we learn to work with. So we're going to have to be doing what we do best, and that's be human. right? Together with the artificial intelligence. That's something that we're going to have to learn. Though it means that for entrepreneurs, for employers and whatsoever, is that you can focus on a lot of things. And also if you look at how we are using AI in recruitment processes, which is of course in terms of efficiency very interesting, right? We should not oversee that soft skills will be a very defining factor in being successful on the work floor and in collaboration with others. So having enough attention for that will be an important point. So think about that also if you reverse that thinking and you think about recruitment, be the first one to think about the soft skills. If we have the artificial intelligence in recruitment checking the CV, which by the way is also generated by artificial intelligence, how the hell are we checking on the human skills? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, but we should be very clear and very fast with meeting people, even online, to find out who they are and how they relate and how they will fit in any team or a specific team from an interpersonal point of view. And that's going to be crucial for any entrepreneur, but also for any of you building your careers. How can you work on that? How will we interact with each other? How will I actually develop my problem-solving skills, my creative thinking skills, and so on and so on? Where will I fit in? Those are crucial. So have a look on OECD or on the World Economic Forum. They're listed there. They review them every year. Basically, it's been the trend for the last 5 years. Soft skills are top.
Can I add something weird to this? Sure. It's hard to say no, I guess. Because has anyone of you guys seen the movie 300? I think, yeah, some people. So, and I think it's a 2004 movie. I think it stars, and the big role is from Jared Butler. He's my man crush, very beautiful man, and I'm not even gay, so. And it's like, when I saw this movie, I must have been 14 years old. I must have been a teenager, and it's a movie about blood, about violence. It's very, I would say, a typical male teenager movie, something like that. And last December, I was in my sofa with my wife, and I was watching Netflix, and I say, hey, suggested 300. I saw that when I was a teenager. And it's a movie about the 300 Spartans fighting the 1 million Persian people, right? It's based on a true story, but if you've seen the movie, it's take a grain of salt with that. But something that I truly remembered from that movie is there's one scene where the 300 Spartans are moving through a mountain range, and the right hand from Leonidas says, hey Leonidas, have you seen someone is creeping upon us? And Leonidas, he says, come forth from the shadows and show your face, you coward. And from the shadows comes Ephialtes, the Greek name Ephialtes, and he says, I'm sorry Leonidas, but I'm also a Spartan, just like yourself. I want to be a soldier in your army, and let me prove myself to you. I will be a worthy soldier for you. And Leonidas, a kind man as he is, he says, of course Ephialtes, you can show how you deal with yourself. And he grabs the spear, and he packs the spear, you know, and he punches the spear, the tool, the hard skill, right? And Leonidas is like, oh, that's actually very impressive. You know how to do your spear thing, right? And he says, now let us see, let us taste how you use your shield. And Ephialtes is going on the floor, and he falls in shame. And he tries to lift his shield, and he does not succeed. Does anyone remember why that is the case? Why can't Ephialtes lift his shields? Yes?
Because if that part of the unit is the weaker point, so the arrows can
Yes, you're actually thinking one step ahead. That's really remarkable. Because Ephialtes has something in his shoulder. It's like the Quasimodo from Notre Dame. He has like this Disney, I don't know the term, but you know what I mean. He cannot lift his shield, and Leonidas said, as a very tough man, he said, you cannot join the army. Why? Because us Spartans, we do not measure our strength by the strength of our spear, but in how well we can protect ourselves. If you were a Spartan around that time and you came home without your shield, you had a death sentence because it was a symbol for you not protecting other people. And it's such a crazy experience in my head to see this in a film like 300, which is blood-packed. You know, everyone had like a basic fit membership. They were ripped, six-pack, everything. And then you have Leonidas saying that we can only thrive as a culture if we protect ourselves. And the shield is in this case a metaphor for a soft skill, whereas the spear is more like the hard skill. Everyone can use to learn the spear. But it's very hard to use your shield to protect other people because it means letting go of ego, because it means caring for other people and realizing why it is important. Might be a bit of a weird story to add on here, but I hope you catch my drift from it. Hey.
Okay. So, Jeff, how can organization create environments that encourage this? That encourage the unlock entrepreneur potential and these kind of things?
Well, I think Jan will agree with me. I'll keep it short on this one. I always go to a lot of companies and they always ask me, how come that employees never come to me when there's something wrong with them? My door is always open. That's what they say. And while I appreciate the gesture, while I appreciate the intention, I think that, you know, the idea of the door being always open starts from hiring. You know, that's what I do with the people that work with us. It starts with hiring, with showing that mental health is important in the company, with being vulnerable yourself first. You cannot expect people to be vulnerable and not be vulnerable yourself. It's a bit of a weird thought. So you have to be vulnerable yourself because it creates trust. And those things are really, really important, just to start with. I can add a lot more to that, but I feel like, do you agree?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. And I think that the example that Jeff gave is pretty exemplary, actually, for how it works. If you keep the door open and you expect people to come to you, maybe that's the wrong way around. Maybe it starts with you engaging in conversation with the people and trying to open up to them, because how will you expect other ones? So it's by leading by example. Expecting people to come up, to speak up and so on, that's the easy part. That's easy, the easy side of things. If you also look at what you've also referred to closely, there's a big thing at the moment also in research, it's called employee silence. Hello? So, a big thing in research, also Peggy de Prins is very much busy, is employee silence and trust in the workplace. Why do people don't speak up? Why don't people don't speak up? Yes?
But I think there is also a bit of controversy because we say that mental health is completely accepted, but then we don't normalize it. If someone has a burnout or something, like it's still weird and not well seen. So that's why I think it's not like a safe place.
No. So, and there you are. So we're talking about safe place. Yeah. So employee silence. Well, why don't people speak up, despite the fact that we think that it's a safe space and a trusted workspace? So apparently we're not there yet, and we haven't found all the ways yet to talk about that openly and on an even space. So it's very important also that in leadership training we talk about this, and that it's about being authentic and actually opening up to those kinds of conversations, not only waiting for the question to arrive or to come to you, but also to proactively engage conversations to actually talk about these things. Because otherwise, it will keep itself to either the coffee machine or either yourself at home. So that's a very important thing where we have to move in towards health and safety and in the workplace. I believe there we still don't know exactly how that works. That's why a number of researchers, also Antoinette Weibel in Switzerland, are really focusing on this point of trust in the workplace and how we can trust. Sure.
And
Yes?
what about educational institutions? How can they integrate these soft skills? Like in the programs, but not only, I'm not just thinking of the children or youngsters there,
Yeah.
but also the employees there, because I hear more and more that teachers in general have more and more depression, anxiety, stress, etc., more and more pressure,
Yeah.
and that can be transmitted somehow to the
Yeah.
children or youngsters.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be worked from both sides, yeah, not just the students, but also the employees,
Yeah.
teachers, and everybody else.
Yeah, okay. So this is a throwback to my original degree, so I'm an educational psychologist. And what you've seen over the years is that I don't think that, especially throughout education, we pay enough attention to talking about it, but in education it's all about doing it on a daily basis. Why don't we engage in any conversation that is respectful? About the election, about why don't we work on projects together to actually do the skill instead of to talk about it. I'm very much for anything that raises awareness and consciousness about a difficult topic. but we have to do this on a daily basis in practice. That's why I believe that we have to focus much more on that practice and educational practice and methods that lead us to having kids working together, engaging in a conversation, talking about differences and whatever. I'm pretty happy that my kids went through that kind of education. I'm not saying it's perfect. They grew up in Antwerp, went to elementary school with 25 nationalities and 20 languages. So it's also about just opening up to that and making that happen. At the same time, if you look at how we engage with kids in kindergarten and how that actually degrades towards secondary education and university, the kids are very open up in kindergarten. In elementary school, there's a lot of openness, and it seems sometimes that they unlearn along the way to engage in conversation and interesting debates. So, to your point, we should much more focus on practicing things, doing stuff together. Also think about the soft skills that are so important. Creative thinking, collaborating, communicating. Let's talk about it, but let's, for God's sake, let's try to practice it on a daily basis.
And I think it's also important to show or to live it at home as well, right? Not just leave this to schools or universities
Yeah.
or institutions.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
That's what I try to do with my children. That's all.
and that's cool. And that's cool. That's a very political debate, though, that you're picking now. Also in Belgium, that is, what's the role of parenting and what's the role of school? But I do believe that yes, it starts from home. Of course.
I strongly believe in that. But as you said, that could take us to another very long debate.
Yes. Yes. So let's take a move back. But I mean, towards soft skills and mental health. Yes, let's talk about that as from a young age.
Yeah,
But also
in my
normal.
school, in my children, in one of my child's school, there is already in the last 2 years 3 suicides. Yeah, from 17 years old. And I'm talking about European school, yeah? I'm not just talking about it.
Yeah.
So there is a problem there.
Yes, and that is probably also related to standards and performance and what have you. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm not going to debate that. But I do think that, again, we're at creating safe spaces where we can actually do that. And yes, we need to talk about it. And yes, we need to raise awareness, but we also have to practice it on a daily basis with each other. Jeff?
There's
Yes,
a
question.
Yep.
Do you think that in terms of the company, the employers should have like the knowledge of soft skills and raising awareness of like mental health in order to create a good environment in order to employees to feel comfortable and then like higher the value of
Yep.
whatever company you reach for?
I think that, especially, I think that companies invest a lot in these kind of programs. At the same time, maybe it's not enough to organize the program, but it's also about living what you're saying and teaching what you preach. So there is very much on a daily basis that need to happen in the interaction between workers and leaders and between workers amongst them. So we cannot leave this up to HR to be a program. That's what I'm saying. Yes, we invest in this. Yes, entrepreneurs are aware of this. But it's also something that we cannot leave up to the HR department. It's something that we have to get everybody on board. It's not something that is only for prevention. It's not only something that is for the health officer. It's something that we have to do all of us together. And that's why leadership is so important, to show that this is across the company, from senior to middle to first line management, that this is actually lived through. I think that is the important one. Because companies are spending a lot on training and on mental health programs.
Maybe there's still a lot of skepticism about, as you said before, like having a burnout, being just an employee, telling like the person hired to you that you feel maybe there's a lot of like that you feel scared to share with them what you feel, just because you could think that you lose your job or.
Yeah. So I personally don't think that there's a lot of skepticism, because basically people that drop out, like I said, for a long time because of illness, whatever illness it is, they will show in the data. So there is awareness that there are people that are absent. I think we need to think about, I think organizations need to think more about what do we do in terms of prevention? Yes, fine. What do we have of programs? Yes, fine. Do we have support? Yes, good. Now, how do we do this on a daily basis? Authentically and making sure that it happens. Because if it doesn't happen on a daily basis in the daily interaction, what are we doing then? So it's much more about promoting a culture, and there I agree with you, than it is about organizing a program. Oops. What did I say? By the way, we agreed that this is a conversation, so any questions that you have, disagreements, just drop them in. Yes, good. You disagree.
I don't disagree. I want to ask you because
Sure.
I totally agree with you about that.
Damn.
It used to be used it used to be incorporated on a daily basis because I've realized there are so many organizations that are developing these projects, like you are developing this. They are applying to develop European projects and focusing on mental health, but then in their daily work, they won't use that approach.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen myself how they will be trying to apply to this project about mental health, but then they will have their workers non-stop. They will have them to work from 9 to 7 non-stop, and they also have to be having lunch while they're still working. And I don't think that's a good approach to mental health. So how we can try to improve or try to make that those kind of organizations start being aware and have a better approach of mental health in their daily basis.
Yeah, I think on a daily basis, and I'm going to leave it up to Jeff to talk about more about this, I think a lot of it is about transparency. So we know that tech is very difficult for people to let go sometimes. We're always on, right? If it's not the laptop, it's the phone, and so on and so on. So we have to be transparent about this, and maybe we have to talk about when we are not working or when we start to focus on, when we have focus time. And just be transparent about that and explain that to you. I'm not available this afternoon. I'm doing something, I'm focusing on something to do something. I had a conference this morning talking about a number of things in France. In France, the legislative bodies have forbidden that people work after 8 o'clock. So as a manager, you can't send any mails anymore after 8 o'clock. I think there, in terms of flexible working, we have to think about how do you work, how do you prefer to work, when do you prefer to work, when do I prefer to work, and let's just have a conversation about what's the most useful way to engage both of that. Because if as an employer we don't also look at what it is that you want with how you work, when you work, where you work, how you live your life, then we will lose you too. We just need to explain to each other, all of us, how do we do that and be transparent about that. And if you prefer, like I did when my kids were 4 and 7, if you prefer to take some time off to get the kids from school between 4 and 6, let's do that. And then don't blame me afterwards if I'm trying to get rid of the mails at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, if you lead a different life, leave me alone while you are working and we'll find a way. So more and more, I believe personally, that if we want to move towards that kind of a culture, this is about transparency and actually acknowledging, okay, we are different, right? And that changes over time as well. When they were 4 and 7, I said it, when they were 4 and 7. Now they're 19 and 22. I started a PhD at the age of 48. Why? Because the kids didn't need me anymore on a daily basis, or not so much. Things change over a lifetime. We can't box that in. We can't try to put people in types. We are people, we are different, so let's be transparent about that. How do we do that? And what are our preferences? Within, of course, a framework of an employer and employment law. We cannot ignore that. Yeah.
I don't mind being the devil in the room, but
go ahead.
But I suppose you're aware that the European Union has a productivity problem.
Yes.
And that this week they are going to approve the competitiveness compass. So it doesn't seem like we are working towards taking a little bit more care of the mental health. Mm-hmm. But I think we are going to be in the other direction. I do agree that transparency and balance will be in the center, but we also have to be aware that there are many migrants wanting to come.
Sure.
Legal migration is going to be an issue tomorrow.
Yes.
And we have to be competitive. Otherwise, I mean, we will be Chinese, Russian, or Korean.
Okay, so that's a different angle to the problem, but I get it. So where I want to bring it together to what we said, organizing life and work and being performant. So what you're saying is we are losing performance because all sorts of things, and we're focusing possibly too much on. I personally think that in our daily work organization, we spend way too much time in all sorts of meetings, being distracted, not doing the things that actually matter, because I don't know what they are, because they peep up and they blink up and what have you. So I see a debate at the moment going on where a lot of people are actually advocating, let's focus more on focus time. Just block time, try to be productive and do the things that are important in order to increase your performance. For me, they are not contradictory. They are not. But it's also about thinking what is the stuff that matters and what doesn't. No? Chef?
Lot of input, and I would feel arrogant to reply to this because I feel like you know more about it than I do.
Sorry?
I feel like it would be arrogant if I gave my opinion on this because I feel like you know more about it than I do. This is not my area of domain.
Natalie?
I'd like to add something. The question really is what are companies valuing? And for the time being, what is valued is stereotypical behavior like assertiveness, being result-oriented, being competitive. But there is not a lot of focus on the caring aspect. And maybe if you would add the caring aspect into the balance, performance would even be better. But we never tried it. We always focus so hard on this aggressive, competitive component that we forget the other one. And we don't know whether the results would be better. Well, results in financial terms would be better if you focus on the other aspect as well. But maybe we should try it. And maybe measure results in other terms than financials.
Yeah. One of the
Maybe a bit naive,
but I think that and maybe that helps. And we're getting back to your field as well, Jeff. I think the analogy with sports and top sports, for instance, sometimes works very good. So already 15 years ago, a book was published. It's called The Corporate Athlete. So referring to the employee as the corporate athlete. So it means that, and many books have been published in the meantime about the analogy between work and top sports. One of the things that I've learned is that, and you know this, right? If you think about the Summer Olympics, the best of the world were there together, and they've been training for years and so on and so on. But they trained in waves, and they also recuperated, and they took stages on heights and whatever, and then they recuperated, and they peak sometimes, but they don't peak on a daily basis. They train, they try to stay on a good level, and then work towards competitions and whatever. They don't compete on a daily basis. Maybe that's something that we have to realize as well. And then we're talking again health and being productive. For me, it's really important. I've learned this over COVID, by the way. I learned this over COVID, that it's important that I have my exercise. So I started to run because it's the only thing that you could do in group in COVID. And I picked up my open water swimming again. That's how I try to be competitive on a daily basis, by making sure that I fuel everything that I need to be performant. And I don't focus only on one small part to be performant on a daily basis and to exceed all expectations. But that's very personal. But I do see that also what we are advocating as a company, also with the team, the riders and so on, the ladies cycling team, this is something that they focus on as well. It's a balancing act between performing, working towards that, taking rests. For them, a season is also something that they work towards. And they don't, for instance, you'll notice, they don't perform in the same game all together, because that doesn't work. You can't be winning the Tour of Spain, and you can't be competing in the Tour of Spain and next week be somewhere else. That doesn't work. So it's a balancing act. So I think maybe Jeff can work a bit more, elaborate on that. Corporate athlete, the idea that we cannot perform tops every day.
Something before I let you speak on this, because I feel like it has deviated a lot from mental health. A small little trick that I learned from an athlete, because it's the conversation, is to raise the floor. You know, so in sports it would mean, let's say that I could squat. I squat. I do in the gym. I do, you know, those legs and whatever. And let's say that my PR is 150 kilo, right? Something like that, right? So I could focus every week that I go train, because I train twice a week on the legs. I would say, oh man, I haven't hit this PR of 150 kilo. I feel bad about myself. But another athlete, she taught me, Eileen Bering, by the way, Olympic gold winner, she says, it's not about reaching those PRs, it's about raising the floor. And so now when I go to the gym, it's not about focusing on lifting 150 kilo, but it's about always lifting at least 100. And that helps, because it's more about consistency than perfection, than that one moment. We always think that perfection or mental health or anything for that matter is something that we arrive at, while in factuality it's something that we do all of the time. And this mentality helped me figuratively to go from 150 to 180 without focusing on the 180, just through raising the floor. If that makes any sense to you?
That's a good example. I mean, the lifting like PRs, and it's very risky to do this kind of exercises because it takes a lot of time to train. So it's more about consistency, as you said, to always lift at least 100 than every day trying to lift 150, because at some point you will get injured. So the floor you raised now comes down to 100, as you said. So your consistency should be now to lift every day 80 instead of 100, and like the next step for you is 100. So always trying to compete with yourself or with other people would make you take some steps back instead of forward. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yes, and try to translate that to your work. Same thing. That's the point. Try to do that at work. Try to be performant every day. Don't try to build a record every day. Yes. Oh, sorry. You were waiting for a long time.
Well, I think that from what you've said about the 150, I think that the perspective should be instead of doing a perfectionist point of view, it will be more to be like to reach excellence. So maybe instead of saying at least 150, saying I will do my best that day. Maybe one day I can live 180, but the next day I can live only 100. But for that day, because I feel bad or I have a bad day or whatever, it feels like 180 or it feels 150. I mean, it's not the focus on have to do this number. It's about doing your best at that day.
Yes.
Regarding
You know the famous quote, when you wake up and you only feel like 20% and you give it your all, you're giving 100%?
Yes.
You know that
yes,
quote? It's that.
Yes.
It's that.
Yeah.
Yesterday I woke up, I felt terrible, slept 3 hours, I cried for 1 hour because something happened, and I had to do some work. I had to give a keynote actually. So I was like, okay, today I'm only doing keynotes instead of the 3 other things that I myself to do. So, yes.
And I think what's additionally interesting is that how are we going to talk about what is important for you in terms of performance? For you, it's lifting. For me, it's open water swimming in the winter. How do we talk about that? It also has to do with who we are and what we feel is important, so that we can also understand, like, we might be performant in a different field. We don't have to do exactly the same thing or reach for the same goals. That's moving back to transparency. How do we do that on the work floor? But I think we're like you just said, we're moving away and we're getting really metaphorical about this. But there was a question in the back.
To not have an improve just the team where there's a lot of competitiveness, or they are very aggressive to each other in terms of excellence, and they are very self-demanding. And so how could you help them do that, to use the beach and relax?
You know, I'll tell you a story. Sorry, it's what I do for a living. So I remember, I must have been, I'm 35 right now. I must have been 28. I went to my psychologist, and she asked me, how are you doing? And I said, I'm not too great, but I'm pretty all right. I have something, but it's more like for a business coach than a question for you. And well, ask me anyway. You paid for it, so. And she was right. So, and I told her, you know, I've been thinking. I was young. I was 28. Well, you know, depending how you look at it. And I was like, you know, I wake up at 6. I go sleep at 2. I sleep 4 hours each night, and I work around the clock. I've done this for 10 years straight. 10 years straight. Yes. And I asked her, you know. Sometimes I feel like I don't have time enough, even in this situation. And I always felt like if a client calls me at 3 a.m. and I really did this, I picked up the phone and I started to work no matter what. Because I thought, if I do not do this, I will lose that client. That's what I thought. I'm not saying it's right, but it's what I thought. And she said, oh, that's really interesting. You really do that? And she's like, why do you do that? And I think, like, that's what I need to do. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to please my clients. And she asked me the question, do you think you're only worth something when you're working all of the time? And I was like, I am. You know, you have a bit of goosebumps right now about talking about it. And I was like, the answer is yes, I do think I'm only worth something when I'm working all of the time. And it really conflicted me because through asking me this question, I realized deeply how insane my patterns of thoughts were for 10 years straight, and one question triggered me out of that thought. 1 year ago, I had someone new in the office, and she was always staying late. She was always not putting up any boundaries, even if I asked, is this okay for you? Yes, 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 yes. And I kind of felt it wasn't, and it was difficult communicating like this, you know? And I asked her the same question. Do you feel like you're only worth something when you work all of the time here in my company while I'm not even asking you to? And it's the same thing. So maybe it seems a bit fluffy to you, but everyone that works for me, I'm not going to make a general theory out of it because, as he said, we're all different people. But what works for me is that I ask people Socratic questions. So like Socrates, the Greek, I ask them questions about themselves that makes them think like, oh damn, what am I doing here right now? And I always feel that on an individual level, this works the best for people. Do you feel like you're worth something working all of the time? Do you feel like, so this is what I tell my graphic designers. They are perfectionists to the maximum, and I love it about them because, you know, it's not per se a bad character trait. It's a bad character trait if you feel bad about yourself when you do not achieve perfection. That's where I see a difference. And I always ask them, so okay, you have worked on this project for like 20, 30 hours or something like this. How many of those hours went to the last 10%? And they look at me like, oh damn, I know where this conversation is going. So they worked 30 hours on it. It was actually done after 10 hours, and the last 20 hours they spent, you know, polishing for their idea of perfection. And so they raise the floor once again. They try to put out more work, and they feel better about themselves. I feel better about them. It's more economic as well because, you know, they are working 10 hours on the project now instead of 30 hours. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? If you have a question.
No. And there we are. We are close to soft skills now because this is working with a team and making them aware of some things that are important. Reflection, looking back, communication, expressing, and so on. It also uses, unfortunately, a lot of metaphors often, right? It's the idea also by you can score as a player, but you win, or by the way, lose as a team. Yeah. Or African proverbs, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So people need to realize also that you're just as good as you can be because the rest is there to support that or to let you have that. Maybe great if you're in soccer, if you're one of the people that scores a lot. If the rest of the team lets you down because you're an ass, that's also a lot about communication, appreciation, understanding each other. And if you look at that also, and going back to the metaphor of sports, and the cycling team and other sports teams, we're a fan of all teams, by the way, they're working more and more on how do you work together? How do you do that? It's fine to score, it's great to win, but in the end, especially in team sports, you can score, but you win or lose as a team. Yeah.
We got a question actually, and it's also on the screen, obviously, the identifying critical soft skills, particularly for entrepreneurs. And as was mentioned before, right, we have a big issue with the lack of innovation and entrepreneurship here in the European Union. It's also addressed in the competitiveness compact that's being agreed on right now. And I just wonder, what do you think is like a key soft skill set that entrepreneurs need to either start or succeed as entrepreneurs? Because I think a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs and they have great ideas, or they have the ability to network and get a great team together, but they may lack specific things such as like negotiation or communications. What do you think is like if you would be able to say like 5 soft skills that as an entrepreneur, once you have those, you're good, and if you lack one of them, you're really missing out. What do you think?
He's the entrepreneur.
It's a very easy answer. It's resilience. It's you know, a lot of people ask me to go speak about mental health and entrepreneurship, and especially for students, you know, who want to become an entrepreneur. And they always tell me we need to push more people into becoming an entrepreneur, and I strongly disagree with it. Because being an entrepreneur is something very tough. It seems romanticized if you're not an entrepreneur, but if you're one, man, tough. And I always say, if you are not completely, utterly, insanely in love with the process of turning obstacles into opportunities, don't become an entrepreneur. Because everything that I do is solving problems, is dousing the fire, you know. I have goosebumps once again. I used to be, I had a very special consultancy function at big festivals here in Belgium, and that is to solve everything that went wrong. That was my only job. I was a consultant. I was a crisis consultant. So like, and I remember in Laundry Day 2017, we had a big attraction in the middle of the stuff of the festival, like I don't know how to translate it, but it's like a roundabout kind of. You can imagine what I mean, right? It's you sit in it. Yeah, it's very high. It's 40-meter high, right? And I remember, so national news coming to the festivals, and I was also a spokesperson for the festival. And the minute they asked me something about the festival, right behind me, the thing went out of power, and for 4 hours straight, people were 40 meters into the sky, sitting like there. Oh, it was a crisis. I had to solve it. And I love doing that, because I love solving obstacles. So if I had to choose one thing, it's resilience and the passion for solving obstacles. Yes?
I like your point, and that's where I wanted to get. I said I was going to be the devil in the room.
You're not
Again,
the devil.
And,
again.
Well, I'm not
The devil's
really
not
devil,
brother.
but sometimes being a devil helps you to think another
sure.
point of view, and that's my point. We are talking about entrepreneurship, and who is going to think in the healthcare and the mental care of the entrepreneur, as you mentioned. I mean, the balance. We have to also share the risk. We can't only share the salary. We must find a way to share the responsibility, the risk, a fair one that makes us more.
Can I be the devil in the room now? I generally don't think that there should be an organization that takes care of the mental health of entrepreneurs. I don't think so. So, and I know this because I had one of my employees for 4 years, and he always felt a bit undervalidated. He always felt like I need a lot of validation for the work that I do, because he didn't feel seen as a child. And now, together, we founded a company. And he's really lost, because now he's an entrepreneur instead of my employee. And he suddenly found out, nobody gives me validation anymore. And that's what it means to be an entrepreneur. If that's what you seek, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur in the first place. Then you're doing things for the completely wrong reason. That's why celebrities say it's lonely at the top. Because the more status you have, the less you can share it with other people, the more lonely you feel. And that's what that is. So as an entrepreneur, what I do is I talk to other entrepreneurs. I'm in groups. We meet every Tuesday and we complain about our clients. You know, that's what we do. And that makes me feel seen. So I do. So in a certain sense, it's a bit necessary, but that's what it means to be an entrepreneur, I think. You do not have to agree with it, but for myself, I do not need a governing body above me or aside me. This is what it means to be an entrepreneur in the first place. And that's why mental health as an entrepreneur is so important. If you thrive on external validation, if you cannot deal with negativity, if you cannot deal with obstacles, if you cannot put up boundaries, you know? How oftentimes as an entrepreneur, a client comes up to me and they ask me the price to do something like this. And I say my price and I say, oh, that's not in my budget. If I'm a people pleaser, I'm like, oh, I'll help you meet the budget. And I think that's your problem. I'm not going to the Chanel store in 10 minutes. And like,
No,
oh, this bag
negotiate.
is 7K. Oh, I don't have the budget. You see the Chanel, oh, you don't have the budget. Oh, let's see how we can fix it. No, they said, that's your problem. So, yeah, it's a bit of a loose end, but that's how I...
But that's a good point, because I don't know if everyone else is as Spanish as me in this room, but the difference...
I'm not.
No? Well, probably 90%, probably. Well, the point is that in Spain, we are not used to changing jobs.
Really?
You mentioned that you did a PhD when you were 48, and well, I had to reinvent myself when I was 52, and I find it really open-minded to
Yeah.
feel, and that's something we are not used to, and we struggle
Mm.
because our parents didn't change
No.
job all their life
No.
in Spain, because you're not supposed to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that we start seeing the other point.
Yeah.
You know, we can struggle for a while and then we go back to the other one, and
Yeah.
and we can do.
Yeah. I'll come back to two ladies raising their hand. Be back with you in a second. But to your point, we are in Belgium. Swapping jobs is not so great in Belgium either. Right? So the average Belgian changes jobs or employers 3 times over a career. Of all people over 55, 25% has never changed job or employer, which is a big problem in Belgium at the moment. We would have liked to have some more mobility on the labor market. The only group that is a bit more mobile than the others is the group that is just graduating and has in between 2 or 3 years of experience. But then again, a lot of people choose a job for quite a long time, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we should encourage the people that would like to do that to make sure. I'll get to the point where it's not for everybody to swap jobs. I think SD Works is my 9th employer, and I got about 17 functions across my career. You don't have to pursue that. It happened, and I liked it. At the same time, if people want to keep doing the thing that they like to do passionately, let's help them do it. But there is a point when that job stops to exist, then we know also that it's very hard to find something else at that point. Well, that's why we study sustainable careers. Sustainable careers and employability are 2 sides of the same coin. You have to be aware, and yes, you have to be entrepreneurial about how you can do something that is significant to you, that contributes, but also that is sometimes sustainable, right? Too often we see that if technology is being brought into production sites or is changing, AI is going to change. We're in a project, Seismic, where we are looking at how AI is changing the work of blue-collar workers in production sites. That's going to take some time to actually have people acquaint themselves with that kind of technology and move to this next step. So yes, we're going to have to help people to be a bit more entrepreneurial about what they do on a daily basis, because one thing is sure, there is no employer left that will guarantee a job for life. Right? We can only strive for a career for life. That's true. Yes, go. Yes. You've been waiting for so long.
No, just quickly to add, I don't think it's a cultural thing. I think it's more like a generation, like new vision of it, you know?
Mm.
Like we have also more boundaries and more, we know how to distance ourselves, you know? We're not like that. We're committed, but with a certain importance of the mental health of it. So, yeah, I think so. So it plays a big role actually.
Okay.
I was going to add to that because I do understand, I feel you, because I come from Spain too, and getting a lot, even though Brussels is not that perfect at all, but it's better than Spanish market and Spanish laboral situation for sure. And I do get it. I mean, I came from a place that we work more than we should. We don't. We are not into soft skills, and all the stuff is so new for us. But I'm starting to realize that we have to switch our mind in order to adapt to this new world. Soft skills are part of it, and boundaries are part of it, and mental health is part of it. And if we are not able to adapt, we will get into the past and won't be able to move forward. So, I mean, that's something that is my approach, maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but I do feel you because I'm struggling a bit to switch from that mental mode to
Yeah.
mindset to this one.
Yeah.
I will be working more than I should. Even when my manager will like go home, I won't go home because I am used to that other mindset, the Spanish one. So I do feel you, but
Yeah, but allow it also to change over time. Accept it, because things also change. I think that Jeff also talked about a few defining points in his life that make them change things. So change things. Same happened to me. Having kids changed my life also as a professional dramatically. Make me make life choices. To that point, when we said one of the most important trends that we see in HR at the moment is the personalization of the employment relationship. Also, employers are realizing that we have to cater for your needs and for what you want in life and how that evolves over time in terms of the type of contract that you want, the hours that you want to work, the benefits that you want to get, all that sort of stuff. That's the only constant that we see. All employers are seeking to, how can we cater for all those different needs now? Because we used to have a one-size-fits-all, and that is gone. That has changed over time. That also has come some dangers, right? But at the same time, it does allow us to think about how can we build that career instead of just keep on doing the job. There is someone who's been waving with two hands. Shout.
As an employer, if you work in a multinational enterprise, where you have to answer both to your employees' mental health and investors in terms of money and minimum profit, how can you find the balance between mental health and work to be done? Because, for example, Europe has become, also it was one of the biggest economies in the world, and now
Which one? Sorry? What was one of them?
Europe in
Yes.
general, in the end of the 20th century. And then we changed our mindset and we focused on things that are not as important as work. And then we are now, I think, in the declive, which I don't know how to say in Spanish.
Like in a downfall.
Yeah, in the decline. Because, for example, other economies such as China or Japan or Russia or United States have surpassed us for a lot. And we are not productive. We do not want to work because we focus on mental health, but then we are poorer. Our quality of life is getting worse. So.
Okay. I tend to disagree with most of the things that you said. I think our competitiveness as a European Union depends on a lot of factors and not only the mental health and that the fact that we are too soft for ourselves. Coming to your point, that was your initial question, what do you do in a multinational when you want to balance performance versus mental health? Follow the money. Follow the money. And it's pretty easy. If you look at what it costs to have people absent in your company, let alone absent for a longer time, you will come to grips with the fact that you need to do something, because all those people that are not working, that's not only an opportunity cost, but it's also direct cost, and you have to replace them as well. So mental health is very important in terms of making sure that people just work and contribute to productivity and the performance of your organization. So it's a calculation that you have to make. Do we have to do everything about that? No. All the other statements that you made about the competitors of Europe, I don't want to respond to those because there are many, many more things than mental health that has brought us to this point, and I'm not so much pessimistic because I think we are actually leading in a number of domains that other continents don't care about anymore, like environment. But anyways, I don't want to take that discussion here.
No, it's about the,
Yeah.
but for example, you said follow the money. And I think for an employee, it's more important if you lower his or her salary.
But we
than
do.
if you care for their mental health. If you tell someone, I'm going to lower your salary because we are not being productive, but you have mental health. I think people would not want that and leave the company as well.
But, okay, Jeff, I'm going to leave you to it. But one thing, have you any idea about the employment status, the employment rates in the European Union at the moment? You cannot afford lose people at the moment. You cannot afford to lose them. They are just not. We have raised the employment rates up over to 80% in countries like Holland and so on. So there are no more people to put to work. So just drastically saying, okay, we're going to quit, I don't think that's a good idea. At the moment where, I don't know who, oh yes, the devil in the room also referred to, to immigration, for instance, and voices are very hard also on the economic side, not the political side in Belgium, to actually facilitate international migration, labor migration from the Philippines and from Mexico. So I'm not that optimistic, and I see if you look at the demographics and our work is evolving, I think it's in the interest of both society, the employer and the employee, that people are at work instead of not.
But we have a 20% youth unemployment. That's because a lot of people have university
Who's we?
careers. For example, in Spain.
In Spain, that is true.
A lot of people have careers, and I think if you're Spanish, you can understand me because we have a term,
Sure.
tulitis. A lot of people have their university degree, but there's no work to be done. Enterprises, like, there are no enterprises to work.
Mhm.
And you have a university degree, and you end up in a McDonald's working. So I don't buy it.
I think that there is an opportunity, and I agree, I would not be the person myself to move very quickly to another country, but if you look at the European labor market, I think there are quite some opportunities to actually follow up on. One of them, by the way, is to come to work for us because we have a big base in Malaga.
The plug.
Jeff, sorry, I stole your thunder.
I was going to recommend him to join EURES,
Yes.
where you can find all the offers of employment all over Europe. And as they said, you know, you just move countries and then
Jeff,
you can
your
ask
reflections.
yours when
Would love to hear what the lady has to say. I just want to say that I strongly disagree with your opening statement that it's or mental health or money. I cannot relate in any way whatsoever, because I had a challenge for myself last year, and it was, can I work less and earn more money? I worked half the hours and earned twice the money because of what I would think are soft skills, because I really thought, it's a bit of a spin-off, but a lot of us individuals, we fall into the dopamine trap, you know? Do you know that your brain makes no difference in thinking about completing your work and doing the work, you know? We all know this person in our entourage that talks about doing big things and never does them. And that's probably because the dopamine trap teaches us that our brain does not tell the difference at all. Why do I say this? Is because for my mental health, because I see mental health much wider. A lot of people think mental health, oh, it's depression. But when we say physical health, we don't automatically think cancer, right? We think about stretching, we think about exercise, we think about running, we think about breathing, we think about our nervous system. And I think mental health deserves the same treatment. So mental health, in my opinion, should be also about learning to prioritize, learning to make better choices, and learning to focus. Because Steve Jobs, I don't know if he said it, now that I think about it, but I think it was an Apple statement to be like, at Apple, we're equally proud of the things that we didn't do as the things that we did do. And that's a good statement on how I live in 2024. Maybe a bit of a spin-off, but I don't think it's or mental health or money.
No.
I think it's and.
Can I add one slide to close the discussion?
Yeah, sure. Maybe one last question or
I have one slide that I
Yeah,
want to show.
sure. I'm going to-
Just one.
Okay.
Nee, is niet erg. Just
Which one do you want?
Go. Yeah. Okay, this one. Hold on. So, this is from the research that we've been doing for 13 years. So if you ever can look her up, Professor Ans de Vos, has been doing research on sustainable careers for over more than 30 years. She's world-renowned expert on this. And she has grabbed this together and said, what are the 3 things that we have to look in when we talk about sustainable careers? So and first thing is happy, healthy, productive. The triad. Instead, you have to be, okay, I'm not so much a fan of the happy at work, but anyways, it means that you're feeling good. Healthy has been a real thing since COVID, and it still is. Andrea is sick, we're home with the flu. There are a lot of people at home with the flu at the moment. That is important. If you're not healthy, if you're not productive, yes, you have to feel that you have to add to something. That is important. If we click then on number 2, what she said, number 2, Ans, ability, motivation, and opportunity. Yes, it also means that in terms of to develop that career, and to your point, you have to, as an organization, as an employer, also open up opportunities so that people can make choices. If you don't offer opportunity, people won't think about it. This is one of the biggest things that we know from research. People don't switch jobs because they don't want to, but they don't have an idea what they want to do. So we have to open up the opportunities. And yes, we have to think about the abilities. We have to invest in the fact that people may not know the job or not ready for the job for the 100%, but maybe for 50 or 60%, but are ready to do it, and we can develop that. Last but not least, let's not forget, we're doing a job. Right? We're doing a job. And a job is also something that is a mutual contract between an employer and an employee, where we said, I will contribute and you will give me a salary. And that's what we agree on. This is important to think of. What is my job? Does that fit? How does that involve? These are the things that we need to think about. It's pretty straightforward, but let's try to do this and look at how do we do that. How can we help people to take the next step in their career before they drop out because of health reasons or because they're not happy in what they do? How can we signal the things? How can we capture the signals to make sure that we start talking to those people, saying it's okay? Have you considered another work regime? Why not go from 100%, which is in reality 120 sometimes in your case, why don't we try 70% of regime? Why don't we go find another place in the organization for you to work for? Maybe this is not the place. Maybe this is not the best place. I'm very proud to say we have a program for what we call Smart Joiners every year, where we hire 25 people for no particular job that we have. We hire them because we want to give them the opportunity to find out when they're at their best. So these are the things that also, and I understand in another labor market, we need to think about at the same time. I think this is just sensible to think about talent management in this way. So maybe you can have a last reflection on that bombshell.
Yes, I can definitely. Is there any more questions?
I have a thought. It links a little bit back to what you were saying, Jeff. So now I'm a leadership coach, and I'm developing a nature coaching program for leadership, but also for change makers, NGOs, and I come from an NGO background where definitely people are not only doing their best and living 100%, and not necessarily that have any monetary value, right? And on my journey, I learned that there's something about coming back to yourself and coming back to nature. And it might be completely revolutionary when I'm going to say here, because I haven't said it until now, how we're talking about productivity and competition and stuff like that. And actually, me and my team of my friends, actually, we're starting to work on something that we call inner work for outer change, and we're actually working on dismantling that kind of thinking, including how we think about, we were talking a lot about the culture of health, mental health, and care. I would say, we're bringing the radical care, but to us, I think to me, it really comes back to how do you come back to yourself when you're really looking from within, what is important to you, and how do you care about yourself in all of this first, before you starting to look at the world outside and productivity and the money you want to earn and on all of that. I don't believe that there can be a whole being, as we call it, system, or whole being systems in any organizations or any of these mental
mental health programs are actually going to work. If we as individuals do the inner work to actually care more about ourselves. And I think you said it a little bit earlier, how you also go to that place. But I'm struggling also during this conversation to, I'm kind of like not hearing how we actually relate to ourselves as human beings, as opposed to using constantly the language. That's what I'm talking about, the dismantling the system. We're using the language that's actually making us, no matter what kind of program we put in place, it's gonna set us up for failure when it comes to mental health. It's just that we're always gonna crash because we don't value care and self-care culturally as individuals and as organizations and as society. And I think that's what I'm talking about, I started to look at it really as a big one. And you come from a very big, Jan, you're coming from a very big corporation, right? And I wonder if there is a talk about, nature, about human nature, about how we are actually functioning as human beings, and how does all of that relate to our even biological, psychological conditioning.
Yep.
That actually makes any sense to talk about. And of course, that comes with a lot of things. But I think for me, the most important point here is just to remember that everything starts with us, and if we don't care enough for ourselves, and we don't demand that care for ourselves within our organization, with our school, within our society, I don't think any program is going to change it. Because the program is going to be constantly focused on productivity and making more money. And I'm throwing this out here, but what would have happened if we all wanted less in terms of productivity and if we just, cared more and wanted more care for ourselves?
I think you can have a really interesting conversation with the gentleman in front here. To your point, our organization, yes, we are in 26 countries, over 10,000 people employed. And I think that what we try to establish and what our chief HR tries to establish together he at least tries to open up the conversation. And he talks about, mental health at work. And he talks, and he talks about feedback. He talks about understanding, taking the time. Those are, for me, some of the fundamentals that we should be working on. I'm not entirely sure, I don't have the answer, how far do we have to go with bringing people as being employees back to their inner selves. I think that is worthwhile doing for everybody, for every one of us. I don't know where that fits in the employment relationship.
What I'm saying is that the people have to do that for themselves first.
True.
But if
Then we agree.
If we don't start there, and if we don't create the culture where we demand self-care because we care for ourselves first, and that for me starts with coming back to ourselves in terms of we are nature and we're not robots.
Yeah, so that's a cultural thing, and we can talk about this, how we feel, work, authenticity. At the same time, I also tell employers that if pressure is the problem, delivering fruit baskets is not the solution. Right? So we have to take that seriously. Work pressure and people resilience, that is something that we have to take into account. That is something that is very true. Yes.
Okay, maybe we are going to close the event. Maybe some closing remarks about soft skills you want to say, like some statements?
For me, I think that with what we saw that Marta presented at the beginning, the platform and where the project has brought us to, I think that is very much onto soft skills and the work. Where we drifted towards in this conversation is much more mental health and individual mental health, which is fine. I still want to see it, and thank you for your last remark. I think we should find it in the balance. Where does this fit in the employment relationship? Who does what? What do we care for? What do we hold dear? And what as an employer do we embrace for our own employees? But I do want to say that I think you all noticed mental health is something that is valuable to an organization. It's worth something. You can calculate that, right? Chef.
I have one last thing. I wanted to say that for us youngsters, I've been like a professional athlete for many years. And
Good for you.
I feel that at least like our generation sometimes lacks is like self-analysis, because we're used to living in a very like fast-paced environment. We're constantly like with our phones, when we have 5 minutes like of free time, we're just like on social media, and sometimes we don't spend enough time with ourselves to like be uncomfortable in our own thoughts and
Yeah.
discover how we deal with
Yeah.
our thoughts and emotions in different environments. And that's related to what you said about like being self-aware and just knowing that, okay, there's something off with my life, like what can I do about it? And second of all, I think that most companies, they forget that mental health is something that you train. Like health is physical and mental.
Yes.
And in the same way that you train, you follow like a healthy diet for your physical health, you need to be aware that mental health is not something that, okay, I'm feeling like a bit off, I go to the psychologist for 1 year, I'm better, I'm done. Like mental health is something that you need to work on. It's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And that's something that companies forget.
To your second point, I think I talked about the corporate athlete. That is that. You have to be aware of, you have to go the long way. It takes time. It's something that you should care about. The first thing, I disagree. There's no such thing as generations, at least not as how we think about it at the moment. And to your point, there are a lot of people that have not your age, that are way older, that are my generation, that have the same problem as you. So don't think in terms of generations. Yes, I do see it. I also, like I said, I got kids 19 and 22, how they live with technology. That's different than I did. But I also see my peers, friends and others not doing the right thing with technology, right? So it's something that we all should be aware of. It brings us lots of joy, but also lots of other things. But thank you for that.
You know, I used to weigh 40 kilos more than I weigh today. Here I am back again with one last story. My doctor said, you're way too young for this. You should go to the gym. And he put a goal on me and he said, you should lose 40 kilos. I went to the gym, I was intimidated, a lot of I went to the gym. What happened after 1 month? I quit. I had a 1 year subscription and I quit after 1 month. That's the business model from gyms, let's be honest. There are a lot more basic fit backpacks than people in the basic fit, you know? So that's what that is. And I had to change my mentality. I had to change the way I looked at challenges in my life. And it's the James Clear thought of atomic habits. It's not about having a goal-oriented mindset, it's about a process-oriented mindset. And we all think in this life, we all heard the quote, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I would argue it's not even about the journey either. And to put it in fitness terms, so life is not about me losing 40 kilos. It's not about the journey of losing 40 kilos, but it's about the journey of becoming the person who believes he's worth losing 40 kilos. And that's what you do in a consistent mindset. That's what you do in showing up for yourself every day in the gym. Because me showing up in the gym today, this morning, even when I was tired, when my sinuses are drained and all that stuff, it's about proving to myself that my body and my mind believes for myself that I am worthy of doing this work for myself. Not about the destination, it's not about the journey, it's about the person who believes in themselves that they are worth going on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have this mindset, this process mindset, everything changes. You no longer think in goals, but your expectations go on yourself and you find yourself to be a much more resilient person. Something that works for my mental health personally, maybe it does for you.
The last thing that works for me, that I was thinking about, yes, I have started also, I weighed a lot more as well, I started sporting as well. It's also listening to the ones that are dear to you, because they probably have noticed things already that you haven't noticed yourself. So I was very happy one day, a couple of months ago, when I was working late again, that a 19-year-old came standing by me without me noticing, because I was busy with the laptop and with the text. And she whispered in my ear and she said, "You really want it, don't you?" I was like, "What? The burnout." Yeah, sometimes you have to listen. Listen to the people that are dear to you. They will help you also to get through that and make the life choices that you want to make. Okay? Thanks.
Jeff, Jan, a great pleasure. Thank you very much.